Hi, I'm Anna.
And I'm Ben.
We are AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're back with Steins Gate, Season 1, Episode 11. Last episode, man. Okay. So, Suzuha, yes, she came back from a conference where she was supposed to see her dad, who was revealed at the last moments to be Taitor, but not John Taitor, and it's Beryl Taitor. And I don't know if that's Daru, or if this show's just making me go insane. I don't know what's happening, but I'm loving every second of it.
I would say my favorite. Oh, I'm enjoying every second of it too. My favorite part of last episode was at the very end, that kind of bringing up by Suzuha of, oh, you have videos on your phone of last night, and it brings you into what Moeka does and kind of more question marks about Moeka's true experiencing of this whole timelines and world lines moving. Does Moeka retain memories, and that's why Moeka keeps such a close, almost photo diary on her phone to know what this world line is and what's going on in it? Yeah. Is that just a coincidence that character just does that? Is that something that's going to be more prevalent here now that we are seeing our main character for the first time kind of almost keep a diary-esque thing on his phone to be able to know what's happening?
We also got the whole "I'm watching you" thing.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Sweet.
It's crazy.
And not, also
really
confusing. I there's so many characters at play and so many different world lines. So characters are different in their own rights. And I don't know. I'm loving the show though.
Me too.
Ready? Sweet. What are you going to do to distract him? Oh, yep.
I believe it. It'll work.
Yes, that is seducing.
Is that what...
What? Okay, the CRTs being turned on helped.
I mean, we have been getting reflections in screens since the very beginning of the show, so maybe TVs have a more prevalent role than we thought.
Ah!
Whoa!
True. Okay.
That's so cool. So like a text message in your brain?
What?
I love it.
Only.
Daddy issues.
You think?
It's a similar look that she's given before.
It is. That's also true.
It's very true. God. It's a perfect example of a chaotic variable. Sounds isolating.
He knows it, you know? Moeka looks so, like, otherworldly, you know?
タイムマシンは破棄した？
まだ使ってるよ。できるかもしれないんだ。
軽々しく話すな。タイムリープって何？
No.
文字通りの意味だ。
記憶の。
Memories are interesting to her.
萌香さん？
She's gonna be the example. Maybe? Okay, bye.
大丈夫かな。
She has this very ethereal,
I was gonna say the same
ephemeral
thing.
presence.
今度はなえちゃんだ。ウィース。
まだその格好なのか。
店長に一日それでいろって怒られちゃう。
So the seducing worked.
You'll poison children's mind. Poison.
やるかないようにしてるけど、死があるって探してたんだよ。さっきはお父さんがひどいことして。
言うためにわざわざ。なんとよくできた小動物。俺もミスターブラウンにはいつも迷惑をかけている。おあいこだ。
オカリンはいつもこうだよ。ふぶきちゃん、こそ私に行くんだ。
そういやそろそろ。
さんとなえちゃんも。トゥットゥルー。またね。
いや、俺はまだクリスティーナに頼まれたパーツを探さねば。
マキセ・クリスはセルンに通じている。
セルンのスパイ。まさかな。ヌルポ。
The work at the lab in America?
貴様が生粋の後
違う。
何はネラーの称号を正式に与える。
これ以上みんなをつけた。
ではないか。趣味あと
Yes.
学者が狙うとな。そこまで自分を隠すのが下手な人間がスパイとは
Would be a spy.
考えられんな。クリスティーナはセルンのスパイだと言い出して。
なわけないでしょ。
まったくだ。貴様は。
Is there a chance that she wouldn't even know it? I don't
It's
know
in the
what's happening.
future.
Maybe?
She's part of CERN.
それも違う。
それで、タイムリープだ。パーツはすべて買ってきたぞ。
作るべきよね。ここ。
どういうこと？
Doesn't want to cross the line. There's like a line she has put in the sand.
それもある。もし本当にできてしまったらどう話しておくべきね。どうせこっちも半分はバレてるみたいだし。やっぱりここじゃ無理。あんたの顔が見えないとこにして。私、
Okay.
父親との間に。
では、アーカンソーで雷に打たれ、クリスティーナの父がダークサイドに落ち。
簡単に言うと、父に嫌われているの。憎まれてる。しかも娘じゃなく科学者として。
As a
Rival.
rival.
私の父は物理学者だったの。小学校の高学年ぐらいで父の論文が理解できるようになったわ。
Damn.
自分で論文を書いたり賞をもらえるようになってどうでもよかった。私は父と議論ができるのが楽しかった。文を交わして議論を深めて私の相手をしなくなった。楽しんでいる間に私は論破していたの。マリを指摘し父のプライドを。父は母に当たるようになった。自信を失って次第私を憐れんでいるのか蔑んでいるのか。娘の分際でって。タイムリープできる装置を私が作るは間違いなく怒り狂うと思う。どうせ作るから。あんたが言う大好きだから。何かを見つけたら確かめずにはいられない。父がそうだったように。
Used
父と私が過ごしそうだったように。
ならば、すぐにオペレーションベルダンディに取り掛かる。もう
曲それ。
当たり前だ。変革する使命がある。に和解にも行く。父親は今どこにいる？となれば資金の問題もある。をかけてくれ。
ってまさか一緒に来るつもりか。
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
我が野望のため。
He loves
Peak mental condition.
He
So you
loves
could further my ambitions.
bringing people together with their dads.
Yeah.
見事な話題を提供し、親子のわだかまりを解消してやる。
自称マッドサイエンティストでしょ。空気読んで。
Aww.
俺の偉大さが分かったら作業に戻る。
はいはい。無理やりでも連れて行くからな。
望むところだ。
I love their relationship.
Agreed.
よ、ちゃんと書いてあるでしょ、マキセって。
マキセプリンと読めるではない。岩井さんちのプリンも同じだろう。
いくつ言うな。
大体マキ
私の名前だ。
クリスティーナ・マキセと。クリスティーナを摂取せずに済んだ。
人のものを勝手に食べといて。 だとしたら岡部は出てった。
レイ君などなぜ一緒に泊まる条件が買い出しに今からずっと女子のお使いをしているようなクリスティーナか。
岡部が戻ってくる前に。
I'm so scared it's gonna be a text message again. I'm watching you or something.
You know too much, and it's from the same person.
What?
Whoa. This animation.
Memories? Did we already?
We can hear the
No,
shower.
it's the shower. Don't go in there. It's just gonna be them.
But like, I also
But we're
need
unsettled.
the reassurance that they're okay.
For a second, I thought memories had already been transferred.
忘れてきたって？ほんと信じらんない。
I hope he
Tell
shares the
them.
message.
どうしたの？
外からパソコンアクセスして何か変と思ってて、ここセルンの中心部とダイレクトで
They getting hacked back or something?
したというのか。まあね、キリ。言いたいところだけだらないうちに繋がっていた。いつの間にかセルンが勝手に全裸。
がこっちの動きに気づいて。
It could be letting them
And they
in.
let you
じゃ
in.
ないの？
こっちから LHC だって使い放題だよ。セルン。
LHC が。おかわり？
Tell them.
携帯に何かあったの？
Okay, that was Steins Gate, Season 1, Episode 11. Man, where are we going?
It's
You know?
going into like horror movie territory with that Chucky-esque doll. You know, just decapitated head with blood on it.
Like, is there some cute, funny misunderstanding
Just like
that would explain away the,
That'd be
like,
nice.
I'm watching you, you know too much, here's a picture of a decapitated doll with what looks like to be blood on it.
I find that interesting when you pair it with the idea that Daru didn't even actually hack CERN, but basically they were like let in, like allowed to see it.
Yeah.
And then that partnered with someone with that kind of I'm watching you, you know too much. Well, if they're kind of is this person texting involved with CERN? You know?
Yeah.
It's because those things don't completely connect to me. If you were a part of an organization that was like, okay, we need to figure out what these people know and how much they know, and we're gonna let them think they've hacked us, you wouldn't be sending them messages in order to scare them away from what they're doing. Because obviously you're letting them in so you can learn what they know. You can maybe CERN was like, maybe they'll figure it out and we can steal their work from them.
Those things seem like contrasting ideas.
Slightly. I don't know. There's something about it that feels a little off.
It could be like CERN's an entire organization, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily mean every piece of that organization is necessarily evil or like wrong or incorrect. It could be somebody on the inside of CERN who is going against CERN in their own right, or it could be something like John Titor or Beryl Titor. I don't know. Like what's the implication here, right? It like if I am Ocarine, then I feel threatened by this doll's head with what is supposed to look like blood on it, right? And it's threatening text messages. What's the intent? Like to stop him from doing, you know, time travel shenanigans, right?
It's possible that it could actually be someone that cares about him, sending almost like D-mail photos and text messages into the past to him now in order to kind of stop whatever is inevitable from happening.
Yeah.
In terms of them getting a little bit too involved and pushing a boundary that they shouldn't and that they regret pushing.
Yeah.
It could be, maybe this is like a Mayuri thing to do. Maybe it's Kurisu. I don't know. It could possibly be someone that cares about him and is pretending to be this kind of ominous, scary, haunting figure in order to stop this from
My
happening.
first thought was like, okay, like without thinking too much, was like, okay, is this Suzuha trying to convey the idea that this is going to end with Kurisu's death? Because like red hair, you know, kind of similar eyes as the doll. If there had to be a character in our main squad that resembles the doll, it would be Kurisu, I would imagine.
And who do we get dying in like the first episode of the show?
Yeah.
Kurisu. But then we also have what's it really important to talk about. If this text message was possibly resembling an actual cast member, a character, and not just a doll's head that actually has no relation, it's interesting to me that Okabe's reaction is not even to think about Kurisu, which I think we should bring up because of kind of the moment we got with them last episode that seemed romantic in nature.
We'll end this epislit a little bit too.
And she's often vulnerable to him, that we've seen in the last couple episodes. These very like dark lit kind of, she's just very vulnerable to him that we've seen a few moments now. But his main focus was Mayuri, even though he knew both of them were home together alone. And so I find that interesting that there were two people he knew were there and could possibly be unsafe in an unsafe situation. And we have seen some slightly romantic leaning moments with him and Kurisu, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I also, because of how it was drawn, him running back.
That was so creative, man.
Right, and I was like trying to figure out if they were visually showing me panic or if they were trying to tell me that something more was at play here, like of the memories that we have in the future been able to put memories back, send memories back, and that he knew something could happen to Mayuri, and that is why he ran and was only really saying her name. Just possibilities.
My like first thought was that it was like a creative way to show how one-track minded everything else around him was, like, to convey that how quick and how, you know, how adamant he was to get home in a timely manner, you know. And then like right afterwards you see the key being picked up from where we transitioned to. It's not being there anymore. Regardless of what it was beautiful, dude. Like, there's something about the music this episode, too, that I really liked. But, if you had to, like, think who's sending this message, a character that we know or don't know yet, what would you, like, where do you lie?
At the moment, because of where the story is and where all the characters are and the kind of, boundaries that some of them have towards what the line in the sand is for how far they want to get into this. Some of them are already a little bit possibly emotional in terms of realizing the distance that this could create, and they're all nervous. We also have the idea of Kurisu. Oh, she works with CERN. Suzuha's suspicious. I find that it would, at the moment, make the most sense to me if it was a player that has either been mentioned or we've seen before, and not just some random character that we don't know and that we're going to get a face to later on. It would make more sense if it was Kurisu's father. If it's someone we haven't met, Kurisu's father, Suzuha's father.
Yeah, I'm trying... So the image that was sent, like the PNG file name, is different than the last one, obviously, because it's a different picture. But it's labeled like LO3RS1TKD. It kind of reads like losers almost in English. I know that it would be, it's like that's not translated for us, but it's interesting, right? Like it makes
losers one totally killed death. PNG.
It makes me think of like the whole like one or like 2chan like kind of talk that Kurisu uses, like a little bit. I don't know though. I don't really know what to discern from it.
That is an interesting thing that you just kind of brought up. Okabe in this episode is like, if they knew like who she was in her like 4chan,
Yeah.
like what would they think of her? They'd probably make threads about her. Is it possible that she is conversing with people on there in a similar way that Okabe did in the first couple episodes?
Could
with
be.
people online, and that it's actually someone online that is knows too much or knows that they know something, stalking them basically?
That's not a bad idea. God, okay. So going through the episode, because there's another character I want to talk about in regards to this, but going through the episode, the fact that the CRT or like the TV turned out to
The
be the lifter, like I was like, okay, whatever, awesome, I love it, I don't care. Like, I love the idea that CERN is this massive scientific organization and is like spending what I assume to be like millions of
money.
dollars, yet Mr.
need a-
Braun has like the key to this
They
whole
need a
time
42
travel
inch.
store.
That's what they need.
It's amazing. I love it. We also learned that Kurisu was a neuroscience major,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole idea of the time leap and you're sending memory data instead,
Yeah.
which is basically what, you know, Ocarine has,
Yeah,
right?
it's basically what
Kioma.
he already has an innate ability
Or he was given that.
because they've in the future do this memory thing.
Yeah.
Especially when we got that Mayuri scene with him where she says he got really sick and what he said to her.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, did it start then? So now we have to imagine that it's possible that he has this, what does he call it? The something eye.
Yeah.
That he got that because in the future, Kurisu really does figure out this memory data time leap. And they use it on him. And that's why he's able to retain his memories through all of the world lines.
So, like, in theory, if we went in a direction where Kurisu and Kioma, like, diverged at a certain point, and Kurisu went more into, like, the CERN path of things, and that led the world into a World War III, unintentionally.
Or intentionally.
And Kioma needed to do something in order to potentially save that world line or that world, and
Speak
he
of
was
Messiah.
able to transmit the same memory data thing, but it's not the same, right? Set the time leap, sending memory data doesn't seem like it is what happened with like the ability that he necessarily has.
Mm-hmm.
It's specifically different in the sense that he woke up with cold sweats the one night and now has that ability consistently to retain it. It's not just like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
And that seems a little different than what the project we're working on currently with Kurisu is. And sidebar a little bit, what do you think of the thought that Suzuha has been time leaped? Like, the character of Suzuha was utilized earlier in her life before we met her and given that time leap memory, you know, like access, which has led her to say the things that she does. Like, she said that Kurisu works for CERN. What if that is true in the future, and the reason that she's able to say that now is because she was given that information in the future to her, you know, other self in this world line, and she is unable to tell the difference and tell apart what's current and what has yet to happen.
It is it would add credence to why she's so reactive to, especially when we first meet her, to like helicopters. And she, I think last episode I wrote down, soldier, you almost sound like you've been tortured. Because she had lines last episode that made it almost sound like she had been tortured, and that was Okabe's reaction to her. She definitely has a lot of dialogue, how she kind of talks about how she knew her dad was going to be at this thing, and if she didn't catch him, then she would have to like leave and go somewhere else to try again.
Yeah.
It does kind of all add up to this idea that she has the brain of herself when she's older and is trying to fix things with that information she has.
I don't know if this is what the show is like intentionally leading me towards, but I feel like stronger and stronger by every episode that the point of the show, and it isn't and will never be about physical time travel. I think that it like that whole illusion of what we as like in our culture deem as time travel and physically transporting yourself, like that's not what this is. That's not how it actually works, you know, in regards to this
or
world.
could scientifically work. Like
Yeah.
obviously they make a very they do a very good job and have a very sound argument in this show of why they're not going to try time travel with real people.
Yeah.
Because jelly, and it makes a lot of sense. We have these kind of standards that we have set by how many characters that can be sent, 36 bytes, different things. And I don't know science, and I don't know if any of this stuff could truly actually exist. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Someday it could. I think the brain is a very powerful thing. The human brain has tons going on in there.
This is like, fun fiction.
Yeah.
But so this time we got the email. Sorry to go back to that. I'm like trying to figure out what's going on in my head. We got something else that we didn't get last time we saw this email.
What?
Last time we got this email, it was the email at 9. This time we get at 9s, like we get an S and then ... We get an extra letter in the at category, which I'm here for because I'm crazy. But I love it.
Do you think that we'll go an actual horror route with this, or a memory data in order to save someone's life? Because in that first episode that really set the tone for Steins Gate, we get this idea that a different version of Okabe tried to save Kurisu's life, but in the line that he was in, Kurisu was killed.
Yeah.
And so that, I shouldn't be shocked or surprised if it really does go the route where someone does die and we need to send data back in time. We need to switch world lines, either one of those things, in order to save them.
It's just so complex in regards to like the memory thing, right? Because if that's where we go and we're trying, like, and something bad and horror like does happen and we try to change that in the past, how would that make sense in terms of what Kyoma's able to remember currently, right? Like that, like it's so bizarre. Like what, like he said it the other episode, right? Like what if he's already done something that cannot be unchanged?
Undone, yeah.
Like what are you going to do now going forward that would make this situation like even worse? Not tell anybody, I guess, and continue with working on what you are, and then maybe a death incoming.
Do you wonder what his psyche, what his emotional state would be right now if he wasn't getting these random text messages from an unknown person?
I don't know. He was the one who solely thought of the risks in regards to Mayuri, correct? Like there was no text that elicited that thought process of
him being worried about her
a few episodes ago. Like when he started thinking about like what the consequences of doing all this stuff could be, and like specifically the physical transportation of time travel and how that works out with Jelly, he showed concern and worry for the future of this in regards to Mayuri. And in this ending, I'm like thinking about his psyche and his emotional state. Like if that was the case, I'm sure he'd still be breaking through that character he's built up to be worried. But I think that still, like he's probably 17 years old, and I know that they're extremely smart, like scientists, and they're actually accomplishing stuff. But I don't think that he is prepared or ready or actually acknowledges the crazy situation that he might be in and how dangerous it might be, and how that differentiates from his whole organization, Is that whole thing a plant? Is the whole idea of him being paranoid over an organization like a long-term plot and scheme that he in the future has set up so he'd be more worried about this kind of stuff? So
he'd be more on edge, more into this whole mad scientist life. Maybe this whole delusion was created in order... So imagine him as a child. And we learn that this kind of all started when he was a child from Mayuri. To him, what would CERN be if you were trying to translate this to a child? The organization. They'd be this kind of more broad, big, scary term. So what if he really has been scared of CERN this whole time?
Yeah.
From a childhood standpoint, and that's what has made him this kind of, as Daru would put it, have this delusion and be so paranoid. And what if it was actually planted in him about CERN when he was a child? And that is why he's so like, oh, the organization.
I mean, if I could see that existing, because if you're trying to trying to convey this memory data or these like thoughts or predictions or what's yet to come, right? Doing a kind of John Titor, like, oh yeah, what if you weren't from the future? Like, okay, what if John Titor was never actually from the future and just was given the memory data from the future, which led him to believe he was from the future? Maybe Beryl Titor down the line was the one who gave, I don't know. Well, I'm going down a rabbit hole. But regardless, I think it's interesting, and we could totally say plausible, that in trying to get the kid Kiyoma to give him information of what's yet to come, he could maybe, since he was a kid and it was so long ago, only attach and remember a few key words like organization, evil, phone. And that's why he's like, I don't know.
Yeah, he was almost created to be this character that we have now on purpose, either by himself or by someone else. I think in a way to either there's 2 points of why you would create Kiyoma. Create for Okabe to become Kiyoma. There's 2 reasons for that. Someone who cares about him, looking out for him, or someone that wants him to be the Messiah and thinks he has the future to be able to figure this stuff out. And the person that wants him to be the Messiah doesn't necessarily have empathy or care for him and his mental state and the people around him. So they aren't inherently doing this out of kindness, or they could be using him as a tool because they see in the future that he would have the potential, and they're using him as a device. So who planted this? Who wanted him to have this, to grow up with this delusion and these ideas and this innate ability between the world lines to retain his memories? Was it someone looking out for him in order for him to save the future? Or was it someone using him for whatever they wanted the future to be?
Time travel lends itself to so many different directions that its ability to leave the audience being dumbfounded and stupid, because they can take it anywhere they want and make it make sense as long as they write it correctly, right? So we're in this position of trying to guess and trying to pinpoint things out of an infinite number of possibilities. It's so exciting.
Before watching the show, time travel already was something. Other shows that have done kind of multiverse, time travel,
this
anything
is such
like that,
a breath of fresh
air
for me.
Kind of confuses me, and it never necessarily feels satisfying. You can be confused and be satisfied at the same time, because when we watch things, when we watch media, we are doing it to feel something and to experience something. And it's kind of fun to be made to feel confused and you're trying to think and figure something out. It's like a puzzle. So I would say this is a very satisfying experiencing of confusion and big things that make my brain, after an episode's over, die.
I've never seen Back to the Future. I've never seen
Back to the Future either.
I don't watch a lot of time travel stuff. That being said, from the gist of culture I get from it, it's very physical time travel. Dragon Ball Z, in a machine, The
example you brought up to me the other day, Minutemen.
Yeah, that's something we've watched, and not Back to the Future, because we're real people.
Our knowledge of time travel is Minutemen.
but this is so interesting to me, the idea of memories and sending messages back in the.
I am
it's so interesting
into this. And remember 3-4 episodes ago when John Titor was texting Okabe and was like, wow, I've never heard of them using text messages before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love this. I love this whole sending a message to the past, sending memories to the past. I like this a whole lot more than how complex it would get to my brain if we were literally trying to send people back.
Yeah.
I think that this is so much more, this is so creative.
It's so creative.
There's something about it that creates almost more chaotic variables, which is a term that was used.
Yeah.
Because you're just sending something blindly out into space. Like if you were going to send a message out into space to try to reach aliens, like a lot of people would tell you, like, please don't do that because what if you actually did and then they want to kill us?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. Like you're putting something out there that you kind of don't have a control over how it's going to be perceived or who's going to receive it necessarily. What if someone else were to look at someone's phone when they get the text message?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that the message is going to get to the phone that you sent it to. The
Yeah.
person reading it is the person you meant to send it to. They're going to interpret it the way that you wanted them to.
It seems as if time travel's often used as a plot device or to convey something with a plot, right? To tell a story and be able to use that to introduce new aspects to that story. But to break down the intricacies of time travel and try to tell the story based off of everything surrounding the idea of it, and even incorporating the main character's desire and idea of physically time, like putting somebody in a different era of time and seeing how it would realistically play out is so freaking cool, man.
The whole idea of time travel is risky, and it inherently has a lack of the ability to control. And I feel like in other things that I've seen, it's like, yeah, you don't really have control of it. Better be careful. There are risks, but it's always much more upbeat than that.
Yeah.
The stakes aren't ever actually, you know, as dramatic or drastic as the risks were first said to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it always seems like the main character has some unusual control or ability to control and use the time travel the way that they need to.
Yeah.
And with this show, I feel like it has the realistic amount of non-control,
Yeah.
the inability to control that is satisfying, because I'm like, yes, chaos.
Yeah.
You do not know. And I am so glad that the main character, while he is able to retain his memories, and that's a cool superpower to have for this scenario, it doesn't make him that much inherently right now able to control everything. He could possibly use it in the future to possibly help against the risks a little bit, maybe 60-40 instead of 50-50.
It makes it such a more well-balanced level story, like that lends itself to better storytelling than if he was this like grandiose character who had this ability and knew how everything worked. It puts every other character on a similar level as Kiyoma in their own ways. It's so interesting.
It really ties into what Kurisu's like love is, which is experimenting, because he's a mad scientist. Okabe, while having this ability, he's going to be able to continue to experiment, but could he ever actually achieve that messiah status that Tighter had once texted him saying, I want you to be? Is that really possible in this world that he could have that much control while doing these things?
Yeah.
Could he someday have that much control? Because at the moment, no.
Yeah.
At the moment, he's in the experimenting stage. And so right now, I do wonder if it could get there.
I wanted to talk about one more thing, and that is the Kurisu scene this episode.
Cool, that's the thing I wanted to talk about last too.
I really liked that scene, and the music that they were playing. It sounded almost like a music box, like when they slowed down the theme that they usually play at the end of the episodes. But the whole like idea of Kurisu being almost inspired by her dad and trying, like, her whole like crux for becoming who she is today was trying to read her dad's papers and then interact with her dad, which then led him to feeling hurt his pride was the quote we got.
He lost
Do you look
his
down on
confidence.
me?
Do you pity me?
I think that's really compelling. But two things I wanted to talk about from that is, one, do you think based off of the feelings that we got from Kurisu that it has affected her enough and she might want it enough to potentially change her life and her past to positively change her relationship with her dad? Do you think that that's strong enough?
I love that question because it brings you back to the first time they were in the park in the dark talking.
Yeah.
And she said, he asks her if she wants to send a D-mail, and she's like, I really like my past. I like who I am. I like who I grew to be, and I wouldn't want to change that. But it sounds like she... And then we also get this character, Ferris, a couple episodes ago, changing something that then changed her relationship with her father. We get Suzuha and a father figure and possibly changing the relationship with that father figure, that it could be inevitable in terms of like storytelling that Kurisu might end up wanting to do something in order to change her relationship with her father. But at the same time, it felt genuine when she was like, I like who I am now.
Yeah.
And I would hope for the character that she wouldn't want to change her love of herself in order to make someone else happy. Because it's just a heartbreaking situation that all she ever did was love her dad and want to be like him, want to learn from him, want to communicate with him in something that he was obviously passionate about. She probably thought and he probably at first enjoyed the debates. And she probably like thought that this was like their bonding. And it's so heartbreaking to know that he wasn't able to like see past it and be proud of her and be impressed by her. Like, wow, my child has now surpassed me and is an amazing scientist and is going to do awesome, great things. And I can't wait to read her papers. I can't wait to hear what she figures out.
Yeah.
She's going to inspire me to be better. And it's just unfortunate that her father was too weak in his own love for himself. His confidence and pride were all shallow. There wasn't any like deep actual like love for himself there if they were so fragile.
And he took
his
it out
ego
on
was so fragile.
her mom too.
Yeah.
I ask it though because like I could totally see if I'm not saying that she would do it, but if she did do it, it could potentially a text message, a D-mail could potentially lead to her wanting to utilize her knowledge rather than debating her dad, but trying to work together with her dad to try to reinforce his own ideas, which then could maybe roll a little bit and snowball a little bit to them working at CERN together. And that could be potentially what Suzuha is referring to.
Like maybe she would try to go back and be, instead of one-upping him or doing separate research, to be almost like his sidekick and his assistant. And while not stepping on his pride, help him achieve whatever his current scientific inquiry is.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to say that I think that one of my favorite main characters, so like, 11 episodes into a show, Kiyoma might be one of my favorite protagonists I've ever seen. My favorite bit of him, it's happened a couple times, is when he breaks his character in a way that is intentional, and it's to help somebody else. And I might be like overreading it, but I hope that I'm not. And that's when he picks and chooses to lean into how much of a character he is to potentially lift Kurisu up in moments. When things were very serious and heavy, it's really difficult to know, as somebody who's trying to help and listen, what direction to take in those very vulnerable moments. But I love the idea that Kiyoma's like, okay, yes, I'm going to hear you out, retain that information, offer up a solution where we can go at it together, and I'll be here for you, but present it in such a humorous extra light that it makes the whole situation a positive and optimistic, and everybody's smiling at the end of the day.
He is able to avoid all of these giant holes in the road of like possibly saying something that'll invalidate the feelings of the person being vulnerable to you, or make them feel like you don't actually care or aren't really listening, or making too light of it.
Yeah.
He's able to kind of dodge all of these kind of really real and accidental mistakes that a lot of people make in terms of trying to cheer people up or trying to listen to their problems and how that they would want to be responded to. I mean, sometimes when people complain or tell you their story, they don't want you to offer up anything.
Yeah.
They don't want you to say anything. And then other times they're like, why didn't you say anything? Do you not care? Are you not listening? So it's like, it's this dangerous, like, landmine kind of conversations to have when someone's being really vulnerable to you. You want to make sure that they know that you are listening to them, you're not invalidating them, you care about them. And he has such a way of using his humor and his delusion, but also to almost send his love and his care in a little package. Like, he'll do something, he'll frame it, but the inside of the frame is him being like, I'm gonna go with you to see your dad.
Yeah.
Like, and he just sends it out there. Because if he was just like, I'm gonna go with you to see your dad.
If that's what he
packages
said,
it for them.
If all he did was say that, I don't think Kurisu would be on board with the idea and was like, okay, and would be like, okay, but I'm holding you to that. I think it's all because of the presentation.
It's like he opens up the door with his presentation, and then he shoves in the idea that he's gonna come with her.
Yeah.
And she is now open to receiving it because he opened the door first by kind of either creating a funny moment, creating a moment where she's like, oh, you're so silly, sometimes you're nice, you know?
And I'd like to think that maybe she even thought, like, oh, you're joking about that, but I'm going to hold you to it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think that he's incredibly, like, emotionally intelligent, and I like him as a main character a lot.
Me too.
All right, that's all I have, you.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.